Yeah.
Well, hello everybody out there.
I feel like.
Oh no, I got in your way. I'll start over again. Well, hello everybody. Thanks for returning to our podcast to listen. I don't know. We've never done an intro before because I don't think anyone ever listened. Yeah. Well, hi everybody.
Well,
hello.
hey guys. Hey, new friends.
Hi.
I don't know
Nerd
what to do
number
with my
2
voice.
here, saying hello for nerd number 1 and nerd number 3.
Did you guys like the intro, the music that I put together?
Yeah, that was all right.
It's okay.
Yeah, when I listened to the last one.
You haven't listened to it yet, have you?
No.
I wouldn't listen to my own podcast either unless I needed to edit it. So that's really the only reason. I can't stand the sound of my voice.
I hate mine, but I love yours.
Oh, well, I love yours and I love yours, Nico.
Oh.
So that works. This works nicely. So that's kind of a fun way to get this thing started off. It was brought to my attention that certain people who just started listening to the podcast don't know anything about us, and nor should they.
Fair.
Because we didn't say anything about us. We just assumed that our fans came along for the ride for the last 5 years. We did start this podcast about 5 years ago. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I was looking at I was cleaning up old files.
It might actually have been
yeah.
longer than 5.
They're dated back for sure.
Because
Somewhere around 5, yep.
I reignited our Instagram that I had put together quite a while ago. And the funny thing is that getting back into an old Instagram account is similar to starting. It's harder than starting a bank account. It's harder because you're going through 20,000 5-step verifications, and eventually I'm just like, I don't care anymore. I'll just make a new one. But I found it, and the only picture on our Instagram account was from 2015. So I know for a fact that we had started before that. So it had to have been 2014, 2015, somewhere in there.
Oh man.
Were you?
Yeah,
you were in LA
look.
then.
I was in LA at the time. Yeah, I was in LA at the time when we started it, because we started it when I was in my little studio apartment. Now that you guys came and visited that one time. So yeah, my oldest file save that I diligently called First Cast, because I'm that nerd. Yeah.
5/27/2015.
5/27/2015. Oh, okay. So it was.
Yeah, we're almost up
beginning.
on the 5-year anniversary.
Wow, that's nuts. Wow, we're gonna have to have a 5-year anniversary show.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the number of podcasts that we actually recorded. I mean, we probably only recorded, I don't know, maybe a dozen, 15, something like that. But I didn't edit. I maybe edited like 4 of them because it just got absurd after a while. Because all we would do is we'd start talking about a movie, and then eventually we would start talking about something unbelievably just not at all kosher to put out there for anyone to hear, let alone like our parents and things. It's just kind of conversation we would have in life.
Only something that you would want if you had an alias.
right, exactly, which we don't. So eventually it was just like, we can't keep. So this version of the Smoking Hot Nerds is going to be relatively family friendly, if you don't mind the occasional F-bomb.
We're going to be lukewarm nerds.
Lukewarm nerds. No, we're still hot. We still got it. But I want to
simmering.
First of all, the idea of the Smoking Hot Nerds is we wanted to just talk about movies and TV. We wanted to geek out a little bit about all things pop culture, and not that we could claim that we're experts by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we're relatively well spoken for a bunch
We've
of
got some miles,
40-year-olds.
You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not like the 22-year-old kid who's definitely knows everything.
Right. You're right. Yeah, no. All I know is I don't know. But so if you're watching the show, you'll be seeing the visual. But for those just listening to it, to my right of the screen is Eric Propp. And to my left is Nick Hill. Now, we are childhood friends. Eric and I met for the first time in kindergarten Sunday school. That's how long ago it was. And Nico, when did you move? So we're childhood friends from Fort Morgan in Colorado.
Yeah.
When did you move?
I moved there at the beginning of 6th grade. So
Okay.
for Morgan people, there were like 5 elementary schools or something like that, but there was only 1 middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So it was easy for me to move in because not necessarily everyone had gone to the same school. So
Right.
it was a nice little smooth transition for me to come in.
Yeah, that's a good starting point. Yeah.
And one of our other very close friends, that's when he moved too. Joel came here in 6th grade as well.
Was he
I believe.
6th? Or was he just later in the
I thought
year?
he
No,
was
I think
like
it was 6th
7.
grade because we were in choir together. Well, maybe because it was the year that I played football, and I stress the year I played football, which would have been 6th grade. That was
in pads or pads was 8th grade.
pads.
Pads was 8th grade. 6 and 7 was
Oh,
flag.
was it?
They didn't put us in pads. Yeah,
Oh,
I thought Joel might have been 8th grade year.
might have been 8th grade then. I don't know, Joel. If you're listening,
Yeah, I
can
think
you
he
call
was
in?
later in.
We're not doing this live, but I'll text him real
Call
quick.
it anyways.
Either
Yeah.
way, years ago.
Actually, I will. I'll just text him just because it'll be fun. But well, let's start off the show a little bit. Nico, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh man, what a loaded question. No.
Right.
So let's see. I am a IT professional. I work in various industries, but I basically build internet applications out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Moved out here in 2004. Followed a job. I've got a degree in multimedia and web design. That's kind of where it all started. And I've been, my movie days, those go back, starting with my dad, watching like the Bond films. That's kind of where it started. And then moved into all the other like terribly great 80s films. And then my personal movie journey, I want to say, I can't remember if like our senior year of high school, definitely when I went to college is when I started doing like the regular movie theater trips. And that does, yes, include seeing many, paying for one. I did it. I'll admit it.
I was part of a couple, I think.
Yeah.
It's
Many,
a
Pay for
marathon.
One.
I respect you for that. It was hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
Once I got into the employment world, that I put a kibosh on that because
Right.
gotta respect the art and the place.
It's something that I've always admired and been in awe of about you is, one, your ability to sit through 6 movies a day in the theater.
Yeah.
And 2, that you pay for them. And I think that that's just amazing that you pay for every single movie that you watch. Makes a guy like me who, is looking to do this for a living to, it's inspiring. Makes me feel good.
Yeah, well, like it's definitely a mindset. It's not. I don't want to pretend like it's this amazing feat, but it does take a certain amount of practice to get, because there's figuring out like the schedule and knowing the gaps so that you can do things like get food or use the restroom or make sure that you get. Well, now it's not so much of an issue because a lot of theaters now have reserved seating, so you can go on to a popular movie ticket website and they will show you all the movies, but they also have run times, so you can kind of like take the movie time, calculate the run time, add 20 minutes for previews, and then my method is to try to fit in like another 15 to 20 minute gap, and then that's when I look for the next one. So I will go through and create this like timeline of movies, and like sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. A lot of times I'll do a movie which I call a bridge movie, which is basically I want to see 2 but they don't line up back to back, so I'll sneak a third one in there to kind of bridge the time between the 2. But yeah, it definitely takes a different mindset to power through that, because it's tough. It's a long day of just sitting on your butt and focus.
Why
it's
do
weird.
you do it?
Why do I do? Oh man, it's because I love the escape nature of it, where you can like nothing really matters and a story's being told to you, and you can get super involved in something, and then in an hour and a half to 2 hours you're now left with that. So it's like a micro experience, not a micro, but it's a small experience that that I get, that I can take with and have knowledge about, and then knowing that I'm going to go right into something else right after that is kind of like a little thrill for me too, because it allows you to kind of like step through different things. So a lot of times it's not all just like animation. Like sometimes I'll go see like a very serious movie, and then right after that will be like the most bro forward action film,
right?
And then right after that will be like an animated film or something like that. So it's just like, it's like writing a different emotional set, like stretching all those emotional sets in like a fixed amount of time. But then like you get an appreciation for the work, like the hard work necessary to accomplish all that stuff. So you can see when sound is good and bad. You can see when a lot of attention was paid to set direction, set design. The thing that I started out doing was going to sites and looking for like the continuity flaws and stuff, because it was like, oh, what a joke. But then I realized, having worked on a film, that's hard, man. Like it's not like I see it when you go to a movie, you're seeing it in a linear start to finish process. Right. But in the construction of it, it's very rarely that way. So things are going to get lapsed out, continuity happens. So I stopped doing that because it's really just unfair to the work.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why I had to categorize us for Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And there was TV film critique, or just kind of generally about TV and film. And I went with the general one because I don't believe that, I wouldn't call us critics, and I wouldn't call us, that we would critique things. And the reason is because we actually know how hard it is to make a movie. Sure. We actually know how hard it is to create this piece of art. And so I'm critiquing things from a certain perspective, but a continuity flaw here and there is something that is just nature to something that you're shooting over the course of 40 days.
For sure. Yeah, that's a thing.
Put together,
and It's and a lot of times too, it's just something that you're just looking for it. And for me, what it really did was I stopped paying attention to the movie. I stopped paying attention to the story and the performances, and I was looking for the glass of water that mysteriously gained and lost volume. And then it completely takes you out of the experience. So that's why I stopped doing it, because it's like I'll do that on my own time if I really want to. Like if I see a funny, like the classic one is the stormtrooper who whacks his head on the door in A New Hope. Yeah. Now, if you went into the theater back then, and you were just like, I just can't wait to see this part, then you're missing the whole movie. The whole movie, yeah. But when you're at home, that's a funny clip to go look up. Right. It's stuff like that, or like when Luke looks down the lightsaber, like that's just funny. But don't do that while you're watching or experiencing a movie for the first time. So I stopped doing that, but. Yeah, I just love powering through it, because also it feels like I don't want to call it like a sense of accomplishment. I've got a weird like mental trophy system of like check boxes of things that I've done and seen, and like I'm literally staring at a wall of DVDs. Yes, I still collect the physical media, and it's excessive, but for me it's like a trophy system. It's a thing that I've done and seen, and. Because I don't, I'm not worried about like losing it or forgetting it. It's just like looking at it going, man, yeah, I do. I dig watching movies, and here's all the proof I could ever ask for. It's right there.
It's right there.
Now, so when you're at the movie theater and you're pounding in multiples, how do you deal with your colostomy bag?
Yes. Well, you have to be very careful to turn it to the side so that it doesn't explode.
You ever accidentally popped a straw in it? Had a mishap?
I've never Capri Sunned my colostomy.
Yeah. Okay.
The old human centipede.
That's a funny joke, but it's a real thing that you do have to figure out. Like, there's my dad and I, we coined a phrase, not officially, but it's called the bedwetter. It's when you get like the 64-ounce soda from a movie. You can tell somebody who doesn't go to movies a lot, because this was great. We went to the final Lord of the Rings, which was 3.5 hours, and we watched people get like that 64-ounce collector's cup. It's like, mistakes are made.
With Aragorn's head on it.
You have made a mistake, and you just don't know it yet, because you're going to miss about 20 minutes of this movie.
It's funny. Movies are why I learned how caffeine affects me. And it was actually Lord of the Rings. It was because they came out when we were in college, and it was the first one. And about halfway through the movie, I was feeling real anxious, like real anxious. I couldn't figure out why. I was like, maybe the movie's just getting to me. I don't know what it was. And then, but I loved it so much, I went to see it again. And then I realized, oh, it's probably the beverage, the Coke or whatever I was drinking at the time, was giving me, and it was, and I didn't even realize that was the effect that it had on me. So I can thank movies for showing me that I don't drink soda pop anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it's crazy, but it's just fun. Like, I love pairing it up, and I think my dad and I, our record is 7
movies in one day.
Oof.
Yeah, and that is literally a 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. day.
Yeah, that's serious,
and,
man.
Yeah, and
I'm
it's
concerned
real hard
about your
to do.
diet on a day like that. Hot dogs and nachos.
Well, yeah, no. See, that's the other part too. Is that, like, when I was younger, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It didn't matter, man. You just, like, go get a bunch of junk food or whatever. But now I've got it pared down to, like, I stopped buying sodas and, like, Rock Stars and all this stuff, and I usually go for, like, a Smart Water and like, oddly enough, like peanut M&Ms, because for me, all of the candies available, that one feels the less sinful
because there's nuts in it.
Well, because there's peanuts
There's
in it.
vegetables.
There's something that's
basically.
from the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I don't want to talk garbage about like the
garbage.
gelatin ones, like Sour Patch Kids and Swedish Fish, and like, they're really great candies, but like, when you're all day and like that's the only food you have, like, that's gonna knock you out. So it's usually it's like a hot dog and a Smart Water, and I don't do popcorn just because I can never like eat the whole thing, because at some point it's just way too much salt, and then it also, like, you just get like the corn kernels and stuff stuck in your teeth. And
I
then
don't like that.
If you're going to see a movie and then you can go home and like floss, that's cool. But if you're going to see like 5 and you get a kernel in movie 1,
yeah,
everyone knows you're just going to be like
it's real.
tonguing that.
Pull that tooth out.
You're just going to be like tonguing it all day. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, you just bring floss with you. I mean, I think that's
I just floss in the
hack.
theater.
just slingshot and
use the tube to your colostomy bag or something.
Which I don't have, by the way. For people who don't know me,
because they don't know you. Yeah, so
couldn't help
I just
myself.
heard back from Joel. Yeah, it was 1993, 8th grade. So there it was. Yeah. So you're right.
So
Nico.
nice. So Nico, so I'd imagine when you're watching a bunch of movies back to back, you could probably appreciate the genre changes and how they shoot, a comedy versus a drama versus some action movie. So I'm curious, kind of how I could see how that would play in, and
for
you have
sure.
a much better
And it's and it's always really interesting too, because sometimes, like, there are seasonal films, right? So like, you get around Halloween and there's going to be 3 horror films or like 3 thrillers or whatever. You're going to get around the holiday season, Christmas time, and there's going to be like the family happy movies. There's also going to be like Oscar season, where they've held off on these like serious ones. So that's interesting too, to pair that up. And then conversely, you've got May, June, which is like the summer blockbuster one, which like Avengers and all, like Star Wars, all that stuff comes out. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to try to create kind of like a menu of movies. Like, if you're doing a menu, like an appetizer, that kind of nonsense. But it also gives you an appreciation too of, if you go see like 2 horror movies that are both, let's just call them like slasher films, it's a great way to do a compare contrast on like set decoration, lighting, the use of sound, cinematography, acting, all that kind of fun stuff. You can definitely almost do like that back-to-back comparison type thing. But then it's also good to, I can't remember, I wrote it down one time, but like the most like psychotic thing I did one time was, I think it was like Toy Story, and then Saw, and then and then it was something like A Brilliant Mind, and then like Fast and the Furious, and then like Insidious or something too. So it was just this like psychotic day.
Yeah, that's a
just
brain
genre
day.
bending stuff.
Messing you
So,
up.
do you have dreams after these days? Do you just have insane?
You
where
must.
It's like Woody's a murderer and who knows what else? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does bleed into the night for sure.
Yeah.
And then for a couple days later too, kind of thing.
Oh man.
Yeah. But it's not.
imagine.
But they're not like anything troubling. It's just processing, because there's a lot of stuff that you miss in a long day like that. But then there's a lot of stuff that subconsciously sticks with you. I think like the first time I saw Insidious, the little the hell demon that pops up over his shoulder, the little red demon, that one stuck with me. That was like my night witch for like a month. Yeah.
Speaking
Is
of
that the one with Bagul? Which one had Bagul? Yeah,
Bagul?
that guy. Bagul. He's like this
Bagul.
big dude that kind of looks like a death metal guy in like
Was that the
a trench
Babadook?
coat. No, I think it was. I thought it was the Insidious movies, or one of the movies one that had Ethan Hawke, where it's like the guy comes and takes kids, but his name's Bagul. Like I don't think he talks. But I always imagined I wanted to have Bagul do like the More You Know ads or something, or like talk about how to conserve energy at your house. Well, Bagul here, I love taking your kids, but you know what I hate? Wasting energy in your homes. So why don't you make sure to turn down your temperature when you don't need it? Please turn off your lights, unplug electronics that you are not currently using.
Create as many
Bagul.
dark spaces as possible for me to spawn in your home.
It's purely self-serving. The unique thing that I'll point out too about the three of us, for those who don't know, I think we solidified our friendship through the Ghostbusters, because we didn't really hang out that much. Eric and I certainly didn't until I think summer, maybe before our senior year or thereabouts, and started building the Ghostbusters packs. And we built the Ghostbusters thing. I'll cut in a picture of us from then, but Eric and I as Ghostbusters, our other two friends Matt and Joel, and then Nick was our ghost, because we started doing performances for because we were in the show choir, singing show choir, and Nick was the drummer in the show choir. And so one of the things we did was we would go to the schools and as the Ghostbusters, and we had silly string canisters at the end of the guns, and Nick would eventually show up and the song would be playing and all the fourth graders would be going nuts, and then we'd hose him down with some silly string. That was fun. That was some pretty solid bonding right there.
That was wonderful.
Yeah.
And the fact that Mr. Shank was like, yeah, whatever, sure. We'll work it into the concert.
Yeah.
I've given up.
Yeah, I think he was very enthusiastic about it actually when he saw it the
I
first
think he
time, because we did it for Halloween and he was like, "Oh, we got to do this for the thing." But yeah, I think eventually it's just like, I guess I'm letting these guys do this now. That's
I mean,
that's what happens
I mean,
next.
I'm not a teacher, but I would imagine that he taught at that high school for years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a point where I'm sure he went into
things.
like, I don't want to call it autopilot, but just kind of like just recycling previous work. So the fact that we were just super jazzed about doing this idea, he was probably like, I can build content around this. Like,
Maybe that's why he was so
vitality to
jazzed about it, because it was something new and different and exciting. Now, here's the thing, that not to get off topic too much, but I have so much more love and appreciation for teachers now, obviously as an adult, but especially the teachers in the arts, because a guy like him who was teaching a show choir class at 6 a.m. and then teaching or directing the musicals up until like 9, 10, 11 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
His entire day is completely consumed with these little rascals that don't respect you and treat you kind of terribly, even though you're giving your entire life over to them. And what I learned, just as myself as a performer and stuff like that through him, was invaluable. It changed my life. But I wish we had that perspective when we were kids, just to give him a little bit of that gratitude for being like, thanks for hanging out with us instead of your own family for 12 hours a day,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. While we're middle school weasels and high school buttholes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He even taught 6th grade choir. So he's teaching choir at a middle school level, and then jumping over to high school, it's bonkers what teachers do, especially the teachers who are in the arts. I mean, the extracurricular stuff is just out of control.
Yeah, I mean, we just had no perspective. I mean, there's no way we could have perspective on that. But yeah, you think about it now, and they used to travel. Man, and Fort Morgan's not a big town, but the middle school and the high school was probably about, I don't know, 5 miles apart.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to teach a class and then bail, drive over to the school, get set up, teach, bail, and come back. And because they were at like fixed points in time. Yeah, so yeah, crazy. The fact that they had to they sacrifice their morning, their nights during the seasons, and then travel in on top of that. So it was like, it's nuts. I remember Balderson a couple of times had to basically say like, listen, I've got to drive all the way across town, load up a vehicle, and come back in 15 minutes. So whatever thing you think you have to say to me is important, it's not. So I have to go.
so peace. Yeah.
Yeah. He was great. He came in good. Yeah.
He was, yeah. All our love to the teachers, and also to the teachers now who hopefully are getting a little bit of time to themselves for a minute. Some of them, at least. A little
recovery. Yeah.
Yeah. So Eric, let's talk about you.
Oh.
What's going on with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm a bipedal Homo sapien.
It's okay. That's okay.
Believe it or not.
We accept you.
Hey, dude, that's cool.
That's
Whatever
cool.
floats your boat, your genetic boat.
We love you for that.
So let's see. I grew up on a farm. Yep,
you did.
in Morgan County, a little bit out of town. Yep, like we had mentioned before. Met Matt. Church, or were we in kindergarten too together? I can't remember.
No, we were in different schools.
Yeah,
it was just the kindergarten class at church.
Because I started in Columbine. But anyways.
Oh, you did? Oh,
I
interesting.
left. Yeah, I was only there, I think, kindergarten and first, and then I went to Baker second grade because of bus routes changing.
I was Mrs. Newgate in kindergarten or first grade, whatever it was. Was that you? Really? Oh, I'm sorry I never said hi. I'm sorry I waited till church.
Whoa. I never forgave you for that.
Yeah.
It's been sitting there.
Still angry.
Yep, it's coming out tonight.
Yeah. 35 years later.
Right. So anyways, yep, we all went together, graduated together, high school. I went off, did art, theater, Alamosa, and then moved to Boston. And I've been out here for 16, 17 years. Went to BU, got a master's in something almost completely pointless, but not completely.
I mean, how many masters are useful anyways, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
May as well get a really, really useless one.
Yeah, might as well do a costume design
that you
for
like,
theater. Yeah, right. So, yeah, I've been out here doing costuming. We'll see moving forward in the time of the pandemic. But, yeah, the place I was working at, hopefully will continue, is I run costume rentals there. Also at this place, I've started doing Instagram, so getting into creating content for that, and just started not shooting yet, but editing videos for YouTube. So it was kind of, I'd say like 3 weeks ago, it was, pretty amazing job there, and then do side work, build things for Blue Man Group, and then do things for random theaters and get random side gigs.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because first of all, the Blue Man Group stuff. Which is it? The touring show? Which costumes do you work on for them?
So it ended up becoming all of them. I started just working for. This is when, even before I started full time at Boston Costume, they were doing custom work only for the Boston show, and so I kind of took that over. And then at the shop at Boston Costume, we stopped doing custom work, and Blue Man was essentially like, hey, do you just want to make this stuff yourself? I said, sure. It was just one type of like an under harness that holds a tube that shoots water out of their chest. So when they're like drumming, then you see all the water splashing. I think it's coming out of their chest.
Nice.
So I started there, and then it opened up to all the cities from there. So then all of a sudden I was the one person who somehow got the gig to supply all of Blue Man Group. So that's like
awesome.
5 or 6 cities in the U.S., Berlin, and a touring show.
Wow.
Now, over the years, I think there's still some of them now. They have, they found other people to do things, but I still, up to like right now, I'm making stuff for Chicago. Once I get the first check, then I'm making stuff for Chicago.
That's cool. Yeah. So once they pay me.
But so I make these chest harnesses, mic belts, and then me and a friend I went to grad school with, Caitlin, we make these the bases for these LED suits. Now we make the base. I make like an under piece. She makes this kind of mesh over pieces, and then they get shipped off. Electronics get put on them, and they get put into the shows. So we made those for multiple cities. Yep.
That's awesome. Now, what was your you just made some masks for, was it American Horror Story or was it for Nosferatu?
The show, Nosferatu.
Gotcha.
The AMC show. It was, they had just finished filming their second season like 3 months ago. And so I think it was for the last episode. They needed some spooky, very kind of vintage, homemade looking masks. So I said, well, I haven't ever done that before, but yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Nice.
I'll figure it out.
How'd you get that gig?
That was just from a friend that had also gone to BU and works in theater. We were like different years, but I've worked with her at the Huntington Theater just in passing here and there. And so she threw it my way, and that was great.
That's cool.
That's awesome,
I've seen them. They're creepy. They're so good. Yeah. Like legit. Yeah. So well done. They're really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you like Boston? How are things now that Brady's gone? You guys feeling okay?
I'm loving it. I laughed so hard. But the best thing was that he announces this at like the time where no one really cares. I mean, I'm sure sports people still cared, but it was like pandemics just hitting. And also St. Patrick's Day. It was on St. Patrick's Day, which the first big event here that got canceled, the beginning of the whole like initial shutdown for Boston was St. Patrick's Day.
It got canceled in Boston?
Yeah.
Yikes.
But here's the thing. I feel like all the officials that had the opportunity to call it, I'm sure were like, thank you. It's canceled. Yeah. Get those drunks off the streets.
Definitely.
Man, we've always wanted a reason.
The jails are quiet right now.
Yeah. Now, granted, there were still people in Southie, I think, getting trashed and being idiots because it just was going to happen. There's no way you were going to stop that.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, that day is when Tom Brady, I think, announced, and it was like, oh, who cares?
I love that he clearly doesn't really have a whole lot of credence when it comes to good uniforms, because he went from terrible uniforms to even worse uniforms with the Bucks. It's just like, ugh. I mean, I would not go there just on principle on the helmets alone. Just like, I can't wear that helmet, man. If you change it, there's a few teams, like if I was gifted as an athlete, which I'm clearly not,
who are your visual appealing teams?
I would not play for the Titans. Unbelievable, horrible. I mean, they look like an XFL team. They changed them too. They went from white awful uniforms to dark blue awful uniforms. Terrible stuff. Definitely.
I think they're matching the either the Nashville or the Tennessee flag with the navy and the soft blue, and
exactly.
Like they're doing some hometown stuff.
But the Tennessee Titans tee it's just so like early 2000s, that graphic design that was just so pervasive during that time period where everything was getting super simplified and turning into it looks real bad. That's definitely one of my least favorite uniforms across the board. So if the NFL wants me still, I got to play for a team with good uniforms.
That's my one condition.
Yeah. I mean, I could bring a lot of my 8th grade football knowledge to the league.
Would you also demand that the entire league take the Marvel character version of the NFL?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's a few guys who do some pretty cool stuff. But the Star Wars one was the worst one, where a guy did Star Wars renderings for all the NFL teams, and there was one.
Was
it was
Denver.
Yeah, Denver
Banthas?
Was Banthas, I think it was. Yeah. Some of them were unbelievable. You're like, wow, dude, that's amazing. And then the other one,
he lost steam.
Yeah, the San Diego.
He's like, wait,
Lightsabers.
there's how many teams in the NFL? Oh God.
Yeah, right. Oh, I got to be hot. 30.
Yeah, he got through 6 of them, and he's like, oh, I forgot about how many there are.
I forgot about the
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns.
Yeah,
Ooh.
right. We're just leaving the Browns. I'm sure there's
Yeah,
like a
just leave
Brown,
them
the
the
Cleveland
Browns.
Tatooines. I don't know, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, but yeah, well, I'm sure it's nice and quiet out there. I mean, who's going to be the quarterback now for the Patriots? I don't even think they're going to. Who they
Is
get?
it Garoppolo? No.
No,
that's,
he's
No,
the-
Garoppolo went
that's-
away, right?
Yeah,
So-
that's Niners.
As you
I
guys,
have no clue. It's hilarious.
for
I-
anyone
I
listening,
love
it's
it
obvious
'cause
that we're
I-
the Smoking Hot Nerds and not the Smoking Hot football talkers.
Well, but like
we don't know anything.
yeah, me specifically with that team. So I have other friends out here, and I always give them crap because they've just been the biggest Patriots fans. And it's not that they maybe wouldn't be if they were mediocre over all these years. Maybe they would still be fans, but I highly doubt it.
Right.
You know, so all these people that are like, "Oh, I'm a huge fan," I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's convenient."
Yeah.
We're about
They
to
happen
find
to be
out.
the most
Yeah.
successful
Oh,
team
yeah.
ever for the last 20 years, huh? So I'm just like, okay. I mean, and who knows? We'll see how much of it's Tom Brady, how much of it's the system now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would kind of love it if now I kind of want New England to win the next Super Bowl.
Right.
And then
Just to prove that Belichick is the greatest
and like
coach in the
and
world.
the Buccaneers like suck, you know, and
Yeah.
it'd just be kind of
Yeah.
funny. And it's like, ooh, Tom Brady, that's why you just should have retired, man.
Yeah.
Like, why are you leaving this open
Yeah.
for? I mean, look, no one's gonna probably touch his numbers on paper, right? Yada yada yada. He's successful. He's incredibly consistent. He's the most consistent quarterback. Is he the greatest of all time? What's that mean? It's a giant team. It's a very complicated sport.
Yeah.
You need guys who can catch a ball. You need guys to block for you. It's yeah, you know. So that's whatever. But I think he should have just retired and walked away. You know.
Well, that like even
Sitting
that like the
pretty.
fact that I don't want to bag on the Buccaneers, but they're not also like they're not a very good team. So his chances of actually getting injured have probably gone up exponentially. Because
Right.
at least with like the Patriots, they had the money to get an O line. He had the respect, so they're like, we're not going to let you get hurt.
Yeah.
But not every team has that opportunity.
Because
And
didn't Montana play for the Chiefs at the end? And
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like he was getting sacked royally at the end, wasn't
yeah.
he?
He came
Yeah.
over. Well, he came over when the Niners instituted Steve Young. They franchised
Right.
Steve Young. So then Montana was like, I want to retire. It's like, but I can still do it. And the Chiefs are like, okay, we're terrible. My team, like, we're terrible. So they brought over Montana, and he did well. But yeah, they did not have the structural nature to protect franchise quarterback. So yeah, he was like, I think it was like, I'm wrong. It feels like it was only like 2 or 3 seasons, and he was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go make Hanes commercials. I'm good. Or Fruit of the Loom commercials. I'm good.
Well, that's what makes a situation like Peyton coming to the Broncos so unique, where the team was actually built well, kind of already a little bit, and then it was really invested in this guy. And so to see someone at the tail end of their career go to 2 Super Bowls, win one, that doesn't happen very often
Right.
for quarterbacks at that age.
In Denver, it did twice, but that's incredibly rare otherwise.
Super rare, yeah. I mean, think about. I said at that age, I think he's 44, so
Oh yeah, right.
4 years older than we
That's
are. And he's
Ancient
just,
though for that league.
for
That's
football. Oh yeah, it's
scary
super
old.
ancient.
Yeah.
I always hate when they do that, like Tom Brady at age 39. Like, oh
Right.
yeah. I want
But
people
yeah.
to do that with me. It's like, oh, look at him. He's walking down the street at age 40. That's impressive. You don't do that in any other sport.
This guy can still pick up a camera at his age. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we wish him all the best, but
look
boy,
at him
you
holding
know,
that camera.
Might be losing a step.
Right.
the amount of conditioning. Yeah,
Look, I have
right.
a-
I don't know what shutter speed he's at anymore. You know. He's
What
shooting
frame
video.
rate
What's
is
his
that?
frames per second?
You see my little Jeff? Can you see him? He's right there.
Wait, am I on your left or your right?
Jeffy's right there. You are on my left.
Am I scratching Jeffy's head?
No, you're below him. No,
Or is it
other
this
way.
way?
Other way. There we go.
Okay.
Up, 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 up. Now you're tickling his tail. He's a little ham bone. I had a Jeffy moment last night watching 1917. There's like a brief second where they show there's like a prop, like dead dog, like laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if
That-
anybody
yeah,
doesn't know,
sure.
a
You should-
Jeffy
you should
moment
write
is
that
when,
down.
yeah, a Jeffy moment
no,
is
no,
when I
finish,
see
sorry.
something in a movie that makes me sad. It makes me think of Jeff. It could be anything though, because Jefferson's my dog. He's right over here. If you're watching, that's Jeff. If you're listening, he's like a Cocker Spaniel terrier mix of some sort.
It
just makes me so sad when I see animals getting hurt, even Godzilla.
But is it just Jeffy though?
I don't know why it's just Jeffy.
It's
Well,
not,
because here's the thing. So Buster is my other dog, and Buster is a chow and corgi. But Buster's very alpha, and he's like very like strong, and he's a protector, and I never worry about Buster. But
he doesn't
Jeff,
seem vulnerable. In
yeah,
it,
Jeff was this little like scared street dog that when the rescue found him, and he was just like scrawny and scared of everything, and he's obviously become much more. His personality has emerged, but it just makes me sad to think of poor little Jeffy so sad out. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay.
So
yeah,
that's
that
a fun topic
sense.
for. We could do that another show, but I have a couple of friends that when they ask me about movies, which I do, that's a whole other topic as well. Is that they'll ask me like, does a dog get hurt?
Right,
Like that is
yeah.
a make or break for them. They will
for sure.
They will not see a movie, walk out, shut it off, whatever it takes if they find out that a dog is hurt. Like it could be Titanic, but if something happens to a dog, they're like, and I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Greatest
That's
movie
the
of all
line.
time. If a dog gets
Gone.
hurt, yeah, I'm out. I mean,
That Crawl movie I watched. That's got a dog and
not
it's
doing it.
Is that the
alligators
one with the
attacking
alligator?
people.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a good.
it was
that's-
funny. Like I had to tell people, John Wick, arguably a great new action movie for our time, but there's a dog that gets hurt like the first 5 minutes, and they're like, and I'm out. Like, yeah, can you like fast forward? I mean, you can't because it's pretty much the theme of the whole movie.
Right, it's the
starts them all
catalyst
off.
for
yeah,
them.
all
Yeah.
three.
Yep.
So there's that one, and then Alita Battle Angel was the new Robert Rodriguez based off of a graphic
Oh, I watched
novel.
that on an airplane. That is
Yeah.
a fun, dumb, trashy movie.
Yeah.
I give that one 2 dumb thumbs up. It's wonderful.
2 of the dumbest thumbs up possible.
Dumb
But there's a dog that gets
So
hurt there
stupid,
too,
it's
so you have to
wonderful.
tell people like this movie's a lot of fun if you like this, this, and this. But yeah, there's a dog that gets hurt.
I forgot
Yeah.
about the dog. Huh.
It's when the hunters find Alita and she's at like the bounty hunter bar, and that one guy's got all the dogs, and she has the one little dog that was like bound to her, and he comes in and you don't see it, but you see everything but like you see him thrust his arm forward and you hear like a yelp. And then
brutal.
like I'll dive in a second. So the most jacked up part about that whole thing is that in the movie trailer and the posters, they always show her with like the paint under her eyes like football players wear. But what you don't know is that she reaches down with her fingers and that's the blood of the dog she puts on her face.
They don't tell you that part.
Yeah. So
Hashtag puppy blood.
Yeah, every time I see that poster, I'm like, oh, the backstory, that's so good. I want to tell you, but I can't.
Well, so if you love dogs, which we all do, and you can't stand seeing them die or hearing them, don't watch John Wick or Alita Battle Angel. Apparently,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And there are others, but yeah, those are the 2 big ones.
I mean, even Land Before Time was crushing for me. So just seeing Little Pit's mom die,
that was
hated
a
it.
huge
I
one,
didn't
yeah.
like it.
That
when
was like
King Kong
Bambi
got
for
beat
us.
up. Yeah. Oh yeah. What was Kong Skull Island when they were shooting him? I felt bad for him. That was a real Jeffy moment for me. I was.
Oh,
like,
you had a
"Stop
Jeffy moment with one
shooting
of
him."
the lizard monsters, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Or there's like a big like mantis or some
He's
crap.
almost,
There's like this
where he
weird
breaks his
grass
jaw.
monster, isn't there?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of blacked that
Oh,
movie out.
it's the squid, right? When he fights the squid, when he's washing off his wounds.
Oh,
And like
maybe.
the octopus attacks him.
Yeah.
And he like grabs the beak and.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
Sure.
He cracks
There's
the
that
beak
as
open.
well. Yeah.
I just don't like. Yeah, it's tough to see. I don't like seeing animals die.
When Mothra got punched by Rodan,
Right.
remember that? I was so sad.
Power Rangers was a rough one for me. Rough childhood.
Endless, yeah. That last Godzilla movie, just endless Jeffy moment.
Yeah. Oh, it was just unreal. Just too many.
that poor
Yeah.
3-headed Godira.
I even
What's
felt
the
a
name
little
of the
bad
dragon?
for the. Yeah. What was that? The last Guillermo del Toro big one, or the
Pacific
sort of
Rim.
Yeah, Pacific Rim. Yeah, you just felt a little bad for those lizards.
The kaiju.
Yeah.
Oh, Jeffy.
Well, especially when you set up the movie with it being these extremely unlikable guys in the suits, like fighting and stuff.
Right,
and I was
these
like,
dumb jocks.
Don't like
Just
any
the
of them. And
dumbest
then
dudes.
this was before I
Yeah.
really knew who Charlie Hunnam was. Before like I'd seen King Arthur and things like that, where I started to really love him. And I was just watching this movie, going, "Who is this guy? He's a good actor." But he has the worst accent I've ever heard. It was a real rough American accent that
Well,
he was
but
with.
because he was in that biker show, Sons of Anarchy,
Sons of Anarchy,
forever.
yeah.
And he's just like this kind. I don't want to say he's a nobody guy, but he's just like this.
At that time, he was a little bit.
I'm biker guy. Like, but he had been stuck in this character that.
Yeah, and
I
it
don't know.
reminded me
I
of
hadn't
early
watched much
Heath
of that
Ledger
show,
in
but he seemed
respect.
like a really boring character. You know, like he's just the glue, and like he's just a hot guy. So he's forced to do a American accent that he's probably can't nail, so he's already out of his comfort zone, and then he's just playing like this dude. I'm biker guy.
Yeah.
And so he does Pacific Rim, and he's just like the most shallow.
It's rough.
But it kind of worked. I kind of loved it. I was like, this is kind of great.
The
He's
sort
so
of love,
shallow.
the love bit between him and the younger girl who wants to become
Mahiko,
a battle
whatever.
who wants to be a battle angel. It was just
Mihoko. What's her name? Yeah.
and it was a really awkward no chemistry relationship where I just don't get it, where you're like, you guys screen tested, right? You went through these tests and it just didn't translate. And I think what happens though a lot of times with some actors, here's the thing though, let's be very clear, I think Charlie Hunnam's a brilliant actor. I think he's an amazing actor, and I think that King Arthur was one of the most surprisingly amazing movies that I was really surprised by. And he was great in it.
Sounds like Gentleman he's good in. I didn't see that. That just came out recently.
He's real good. Well, that's Guy Ritchie too. I mean, he Guy
both
Ritchie
of
also
those,
did King Arthur. So like
that's the thing though, with some directors some actor director combos are where the magic is. Like I'm not a huge Sam Jackson fan, but I think that his best work is in Pulp Fiction and in Django. Those two movies are hands down his best work. Same thing with Leo. I think Leo's a great actor, but in Django and in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I mean, it's like it's next level stuff. Not even close to like The Departed. Departed was really good. He was great in that. But I mean, something about Tarantino and his relationship, Brad Pitt, same thing. Just like that is just where the magic happens. And so I think those combos are where it really comes out.
Absolutely.
Those kind of that's the kind of stuff where I would love just to be an unpaid fly on the wall during that process, just to because that there's like I could hyperbole about what the situations are, what the conversations are like all day long, whether or not the script is written and they say stick to it, or whether it's more open and they say how do you feel about it, like just hearing and being around that kind of stuff, especially when you take what Tarantino does with the pedigree of people he brings in, like I don't want to say they come in with attitude, but they come in with experience. So trying to get Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio and some others to work in a dialogue that allows you to escape into the characters, but it's words on paper which are not the same pace as words spoken. Just how that synergy happens. It would be, like I said, I would take an unpaid vacation just to watch that process and like zero comment and just watch it happen, because it's got to be some of the most amazing
the chemistry
stuff.
that you have as a director with actors is, I mean, it's not unlike any chemistry you would have with any other human or an employee relationship or something along those lines, but it's very unique in the sense that many actors, there's two kinds of actors, I think, in my experience: the actor who wants to be guided and directed, and then there's the actor who wants to bring what they bring to the table, and then just have minor suggestions along the way. And usually those suggestions are just actually, let's move the mark here and look a little bit down when you say that line. That's the kind of direction those actors usually want. The other ones over here want you to say, okay, in this take, let's think more about, your childhood abuse or whatever. You're giving them subtext. So there's like two different kinds, but the chemistry with those actors ends up being very similar. And so I've worked with actors who I am so in tune with, and we have this deep level of trust. And then you've got other actors who are kind of like just want to show up, do their job, and go home. And so, and strangely, like you kind of get a similar performance in terms of if you're casting them for their ability, and that's what you really want to do. I never cast somebody for their potential. I cast somebody for what I know they can do, and then you sort
that
of
bare minimum, and then you hope you get more. But
and then and then you get more, and they surprise you. Yeah, for sure,
right,
definitely. But there is a chemistry there that I think people just have. And I mean, if you watch the Oscar acceptance speech that Brad Pitt gave for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it was very like, Quentin, I'd ride with you. Maybe it was his SAG Award. I don't remember which one, but he was just very adamant, like, I'll go anywhere with you, man, because that's the kind of relationship he procures on set with his performers, with his actors.
Well, and that's, I think, that's the other side where, you're talking about the actors. So a director working with actors, I think there's a lot of directors that have something in their head and go, this is what I want, and they go to shoot it, and the actors just need to do their job, and they're just a piece of the puzzle, because I've also got explosions, I've also got this, I've got all these things happening. So you take like a Transformers movie where like a Michael Bay is going to go, I didn't like what you did, do it better, we're running this again, drag a big line of Coke, come on, action, and he's just maybe a terrible, horrible person to have to work with, and just guessing, who knows, not saying he's that way, but so you have that person, and then on one extreme, or like a James Cameron, I think is that same type of person, doesn't want to talk about what the actor's supposed to feel in a moment. You've got that guy just wanting to get the scenes going, and an actor's just a cog in the wheel. And then you have a Quentin Tarantino over on the other side going, I love talking to actors. I want to get in there with them. I want to hash it out. I want to find those little intricacies and these little moments and find little magic. And so, for an actor, I would imagine, if you'd much rather work for a Tarantino, even whatever, weirdness he maybe brings to the table, as opposed to, say, a Michael Bay or someone who's going to be very rigid, and you're just a number.
You're a moving part. Yeah. You're not a creative.
Sort of like one isn't necessarily better than the other in terms of the final product, and I think that like a lot of movies from the 50s 60s were very much like that. A lot of the bigger directors of the time, it was like they're literally up high in a scaffolding area watching this whole thing happen, almost like a play, and making sure all the cogs are coming together, and then just saying, great, cut, Brent, we're out. And so there was no discussion about performance.
It was a different time too, because I took an American film class in college, and I did not know this, but when and I'm sure somebody's going to correct me, but when the whole like movie studio concept started, it was assembly line. It was not what it is today, where people get to turn down scripts. Like you were employed by a studio, and your job was to produce 60 films a year, or some astronomical number. So they literally had zero time to say, like, you know what, let's roll that back. I don't know if I felt the pain of your child being taken from you. It was just like, did you say the line? Cool. Is the lights on? Great. Next cut. Like, they had to assembly line it so fast.
Even as recently as the 70s were kind of like that. And it's an interesting thing that it was like being an employee for anything, where it said, here's your contract is for 10 films, and this is the kind of role you're going to play in every movie. Well, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is that, where
absolutely,
they say this is the kind of character you're playing. Now here's another studio head saying, hey, but don't you want to play maybe this kind of character, and get him out of his contract, and this kind of, that's how it was. I mean, I read the autobiography of Ronald Reagan, and it was so crazy, because it was the time of Hollywood, where you drive out to Hollywood, you get a meeting with the studio, they say, I like your look, all right, 10 movies.
You're a cowboy now.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why they were all in these things, these revolving doors, and everyone had to play the same kind of character over and over again. But it was also, people got used to it, and it was typecasting, I suppose, to a certain extent, but it was also just employment. People were just.
I mean, that's
it's just
probably
what you
like
did for a
literally
living.
literally where the term typecasting came from.
Yeah, maybe.
There was probably like a cowboy type and a hero type and a villain type, and they just probably had like a manila folder full of headshots saying, okay, here's our top 25 available villains, go, or here's your top 20 leading men. This guy's taken. So you get Humphrey Bogart, deal with it, work on it, figure it out.
Yeah. Well,
That's
that
crazy
Alec
stuff,
Baldwin
man.
podcast, he talks to a lot of older actors who do that, who talk about being in that era, and it's really interesting. Just saying, okay, you're going to be in this movie with John Wayne, and you're playing this character. I don't really want to play another heavy in this movie. Well,
Yeah, another sidekick. Like, tough.
that's what you do, yeah. And living on the studio a lot, and just it was like college dorm sort of situation. So super cool. I kind of wish that could experience that a little bit, and because then you had a stable of directors, stable of writers, and it was like, all right,
Yep.
we're assigning Eric. You got you got this, and so they just dole out the movies and. To the writers too, say we need a movie. We need a movie about a lamp. And they're like, done. Yeah.
All
It's crazy.
right.
I guess I'm making a
crazy
lamp now. Yeah.
So
Well, but that definitely still happens with writers, where it's like, oh, hey, somebody had a passion project, maybe. Now let's punch it up. Hey, here, let's give it to a writer who doesn't give a crap about this, and now they're supposed to get invested and try and make it better. Go, So
Yeah.
yeah. There are definitely aspects that are still
That's why you
happening.
see story by, written by, and.
yeah, right.
It's a litany of writers.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to find a good segue in all of that stuff, but it was too contrite. But we introduced ourselves. So, Matt, why don't you give the listeners a little breakdown of your pedigree, sir?
Sure, absolutely. My name's Matt. Hi, it's nice to meet you all. And grew up in Fort Morgan, Colorado. It's where I live now, actually. But yeah, I went to school in Minnesota. I have a degree in theological studies. So I wanted to become a waiter, and so I did.
Very successful.
Yeah, yeah. But film and TV were always my passion. Always, always, always. And I always wanted to make movies, and I think maybe late 90s, early 2000s was a time period that we were just breaking into the possibility of making things yourself. But I always had this strange limiting belief that it was for someone else. And, I had always been an actor as a kid and performed in all kinds of things, acted a bunch in college, went into the Comedy Sports, which is an improv theater nationwide, but the one I was in Minneapolis, it was every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, basically. Not every, but often I would perform improv comedy shows, not stand up. It's like I always liken it to Whose Line Is It Anyway, if people even remember that show anymore. But stand up, do little sketch comedy pieces. So, but on the fly improv. Kind of cut my teeth doing that kind of thing, but had always wanted to move to LA, and at that point in time I still wanted to be an actor. I still wanted to become a famous actor, so I did that and moved to LA, and never put my heart and soul into it the way that I wanted to, and I don't know what was always preventing me from that, but something was, and I just sort of never maybe believed that I was capable of it or whatever it was. And then me and a bunch of different friends that I worked with at a restaurant, we were just all not doing well in the business in terms of not booking gigs. And so I wrote a web series for us, and it was called Platonic, and shot that in like 2013, I think it was. And that was my first taste of directing. I had not directed anything for the screen up to that point. Directed plays and sketch comedy and stuff like that. And that's where it was the first time that I was on set where I realized, oh, this is what I do. Like, this is who I am. Got it. Okay. Mental note.
You
Ding.
felt the most
It clicked
comfort,
in.
and it just
Exactly.
felt,
Yeah.
natural.
This is me. This is who I am. Because I'd been on a ton of movie sets as an actor, TV commercials, that kind of thing, and big films, like studio films. So I had already, but I never felt like it was where I should be. It's a very weird thing to say now, but being on those movie sets, and the reason was, I think, because I don't like being a gun for hire. I like being kind of in control of my own destiny, and so being an actor on a you're hired, and it just wasn't me. And even doing the big studio films and stuff like that as an extra just didn't feel right, and I never really liked it. But I learned a ton. I was that guy who I did like 3 days on a show called, what was that show? Courtney Cox's show after Friends. Oh, Dirt. Dirt. And it was crazy actually. So they were filming the first Star Trek, the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek at the same time that we were shooting Dirt. I was an extra on it for like 3 days leading up to Thanksgiving or something. I'm walking on the Paramount studio lot, right? And I look over, and there's a shuttlecraft like sitting over like in one of the sound stages, and I was just like, because at that time this was before we got into the whole redo of movies like we're in now, and so it was just
that
crazy.
was kind of one of those first big modern
and
reboots.
People were getting cast left and right around me to be extras in that, so they were getting to be all sorts of different aliens and stuff like that. So I was still excited to be where I was at, being an extra on that show, but it was also just didn't feel like me. And so directing the first thing that I did, Platonic, was really where I was like kind of got it. But it took me a few years before I decided that I wanted to sort of take the reins myself and just start to try to shoot things myself. And so that over time sort of started to transmute from making short films and attempting a feature film, which, you know, Nico, you flew out for to help us out with when we shot the first 2 weeks of that film. It's turned into a business, and the business right now is mostly doing videos for small businesses, well, and some big businesses, nonprofits, a lot of talking head type stuff, but documentary style customer testimonials and things like that. So that's sort of the main thrust of my film business at the moment. And funnily enough, so how things change in a week and a half. But when we recorded the podcast last week, I was in my studio, which is relatively new. I just moved in there where I'm going to start filming a lot of things, doing podcasts and stuff like that. And I was a week out from leaving my full-time job at the factory I work at. So that I can, pursue filmmaking full time. Flash forward 7 days. I'm going to stay there for the time being.
Sure.
Probably a good move right now, right?
Absolutely.
I could not express my gratitude more to the company for approaching me and checking in with me, because I was going
getting the
balls to the walls
ready,
on it, like,
and stuff,
it was in. I put in my notice in January 30th, so it was already planned, and the motivation was there and everything was happening. But when I was presented with the option to stay during our crazy pandemic time, I jumped on it, and I was just so grateful. It wasn't a thought. It wasn't something that I was thinking about. So I'm just so happy to be able to stay there and to still hopefully offer some of my expertise. So I work in a cheese factory. For those who don't know, it's a string cheese facility. I'm a supervisor there, and have learned a lot. But the thing is that business, that company has allowed me to grow to the point where I was able to fiscally start my business as a filmmaker. And so so it's indefinite at this point. I'm so happy to be there and so happy that I get to keep it. And then also just moved all of my stuff back home, so that I can just work out of home for now. In the meantime, I mean, it's just me going to the studio in the first place, but I just feel like maybe it's good to maybe do my part and stay home as much as I can, even though the factory will keep running because we produce food, and even though it's not necessarily a food that everybody would say, because it's string cheese, and the rest of the company
it doesn't matter
pizza
though,
topping.
man. It's still like
it
it's
could
still
become
production.
so important, and that's the thing. And it's not just the food that we produce; it's that we have dairies bringing us milk, and cows don't get milked they die, or if you do milk them, there's nowhere to take it. It goes down the drain, and so
there's a whole supply chain that has
exactly,
to stay
and
intact.
we have to keep it going. And I think if we don't keep it going, the ramifications could be pretty brutal. So I'm proud to be a part of something that is deemed essential and needs to keep going for the sake of our own supply chain and keeping people fed. I mean, we're putting food on tables for sure, not just in the sense of producing food that people physically eat, but we're providing. Everybody still there still has jobs. And not only are these jobs, they are great jobs, and they're probably some of the best jobs, in the entire northeastern Colorado.
In that county area,
for sure.
Yeah, and like,
super proud.
I mean, you and I do. I worked at that cheese factory in my college days for the summers a couple times too, so I'm familiar with the industry. But in the industry I work in too, it's definitely interesting. Our CEO did an amazing job, and I'm very careful not to mention names and stuff because there's a whole policy about public information. But he basically said that the employees of this company are so valuable because of the knowledge they carry, the training they've received, and to feasibly think about letting go of this workforce in a situation where, let's hope in under a month we're out of. It's like, and I know not everyone is in this situation, and so being sensitive to those who unfortunately were not able to continue working or whatever, and that's very, very difficult. But I think some of the companies are in that situation too, where they're looking at it as we have invested time, energy, money, and effort into our employees, and the cost of trying to then like release and then bring back in my situation, it's something like 13,000 employees. Like, so to feasibly think about like letting that workforce out, and then when this clears up, to try to then get all of that back,
reassemble it,
like it's
and then
gone. Like that money is toast.
Yeah.
So it's cheaper to keep her than to let her go, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, training employees in any industry is actually way more expensive than
for sure
than retaining employees by far.
And like I said, like I said, same as you, I feel very fortunate that the employer I have is allowing. I mean, I work on the internet, but I'm still working. And like I said, to those who unfortunately have not been put in that position, it's tough. My last year this time, I was released from my employer. They went through a merger, and I was unemployed basically January 16th through July of last year. So I get it. Like that's, it was funny when they told us that we were going to come work from home. I had a little bit of that same anxiety because I'm literally sitting a year later exactly where I was, and in a different position, very thankfully. But I was literally right here,
waiting for a repeat of the same news.
Just like, did you read my resume? Are you going to call me back? Am I going to find something today? Like, so it's I sympathize and feel that it is a tough spot to be in. The only light at the end of the tunnel I have is this is a pandemic situation where either it's going to peter itself out, or science is going to catch up, and we're going to be able to treat and monitor this stuff. I think the social distancing is good. All that stuff that we're trying to do is good and right. We just have to like buckle in and do it, because it will pass. It's not like we had it's not something as catastrophic as like a nuclear meltdown, where like we were talking about Chernobyl last week, that like it's not like literally there was a nuclear and there's fallout and we have to move. Or it's not like our country was taken over by a military overlord and is now wiping out all the firstborn. Like, it's nothing like that. It's nothing as catastrophic.
All the infrastructure is just sitting here waiting.
Right. Yeah. And that's
we just get to go home and work from home. And what's interesting is I think a lot of companies are starting to see how not necessary their office buildings and things like that are, because people can work at almost 100% from home, and it's connecting people in new ways with getting doing things like this Skyping and Zooming and all
and
that stuff.
It doesn't parlay into every industry. I mean, it's just a fact. Like there, especially here in Vegas, like you've got, you just think about like bartenders, servers, but then there's also, I mean, nail salons, tattoos, oddly enough, like brothels because it's Nevada, but like anything that is a direct customer interaction, customer facing industry right now is struggling hard.
Yeah.
And we're going to come out of it, but it's like it's doing the steps necessary to make sure that we shorten that time of coming out of it. It's, you know, the one thing I don't like social media wise and stuff is people putting in the numbers, the statistics of all the, the flu kills 500,000 people every year,
right?
And cancer kills 250,000. Like those numbers are terrible in general itself, but like it's not the same situation. Because if we treated it like that, basically every year from November to May, we would shut down because it's flu season. And we don't do that. So at some point, we'll get to the situation where it's almost like the annoying joke of saying, oh, did you go to your local pharmacy and get your flu shot? Like it's going to be did you go get your COVID shot? Like I hope it gets to that level of brevity that we're like, nah, I'm not doing the COVID shot this year. You know what I mean? It's like, we're in a situational time now where we're not there. Like the world is not there yet. This is a new thing, and I don't know. It's
being
opinions.
20% of the
population.
Long, if 20% of the population has to go to the hospital, you can go, oh, that's only 20%. How many millions of people is that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A billion people on this globe, almost a billion people on the planet. If we all get sick at once and let it spread like a wildfire, then how many millions are toast? Yeah.
Right.
And being,
that's
not a
too.
doctor or population expert by any stretch, but I know that the theoretical place where it started, they're kind of lifting the ban and they're sort of easing up in China. And like, I get it. And there's a lot of people who know a lot more than we do who are in charge of these things. But I think until we had a vaccination in place and something that was really effective, it might be a good idea for everyone to stay on lockdown, because they're like, well, we haven't had any new cases in XYZ amount of days. Like, yeah, well, we had 0 cases not that long ago, and now it's infected the entire world. And that's the kind of the confusing thing, is to think, oh, we're going to ease up on because we haven't had any new cases. I'm like, well, the reason that we haven't had new cases is because everyone's staying home. So until we have something effective to battle it, it's probably best to stay home rather than wait for somebody to get it again.
It's statistics too. I mean, there's all sorts of factors like availability of testing. Like how many times have you had a coworker who came in office, they were like coughing, sneezing, whatever, and you're like, listen, dude, you're sick, go home. And they're either like, I don't have vacation days, or no, I'm just fine, it's allergies or whatever. But like, so for every reported case, that's because a test was performed and a positive came back. So take that one person and multiply it safely by 10 of how. So seeing like the numbers jump, and I think today we just crossed like 100,000 infected cases in the United States, and they're like, oh, this is terrible. It's like, well, it was probably,
it already was.
Yeah, it was already was 100,000. We just finally got the tests in place, or somebody finally was like, you know what, I am feeling like garbage. Let me go to the hospital, or let me go to the ER. Or they were just like, I don't have
get
it.
themselves
let me power
to
through
a
it.
point where they are now eligible to get tested, because tests are so rare. That, I mean, now we're just starting to turn to where it's like, okay, more people can actually get tested. But for forever it was like, no, unless you're hawking up a lung, don't come in and get tested. Like, stay away from the hospital. We don't have time for you.
So it's the whole, like, that's the other part too, that like you have to be very careful with this, reading the statistics in the news and stuff like that, knowing that it's always going to be skewed and a message is going to be added to it. But like the pure core math of it is, until the test comes back positive, that's not a positive case. But that doesn't mean that it's not like a hurricane or a blizzard where you can go outside and be like, oh, there's 3 inches of snow. That's a 3 inches snowfall. You could walk into a room with 200 something people, and you can't be like, everyone in here wearing a blue hat is wearing a blue hat. That's not how it works. That's not how this stuff works. So it's you have to be very, very careful about it, but also I don't want to put enough levity on it so that it's not like I'm taking it seriously. Like, you do have to take it seriously. The social distancing is good. The lockdown is good. Being conscious when you have to go out for supplies and stuff like that. It's all important stuff, but don't take it so seriously that you're like saran wrapping your house to let zero oxygen in.
Right.
Like that's not the appropriate response.
Yeah,
I'll give you a second.
I'm getting pretty lightheaded. I'm just gonna pop some holes.
Eric will be back in 2 hours.
On the flip side, the other side was like all the people that went on spring break and they were like, I've already paid the deposit. Like, you know what? That's Darwin saying,
this is my one spring break.
get
Screw it. I'm not gonna let the world take this
It's
from me.
funny because I don't see I find myself in a very privileged place in my life, which is something that I'm just so grateful for. But I just don't see money and deposits and travel and all that kind of stuff as a priority when the other potential is you dying or in my case,
carrying it, killing someone else.
I fear making someone else sick because I'm relatively healthy, and so if I were to get it, infecting someone else would be the worst thing that I could possibly think of doing. And so to say, I canceled 3 trips, 2 of which were for gigs. I'm not losing money. We'll still do the things, the gigs, but I, had to 100%. We just had to postpone. And these are just important things to do. You just have to do it. There is nothing that is that important, except, unless it is. But I think that. Well,
I had some important things occur that family personal stuff that I was like, I had to make that decision of, this was both pre and post. Was just like, if I'm healthy and if I have contracted it and I'm just carrying it. What is the social ethical burden of knowing that I have passed that on and then affected someone else? That's something that I'm not like, I'm cool with that. I'm just not, like, I'm definitely not. So
especially when an airplane's involved and going to an airport, like you're just upping your chances tremendously.
You're just accelerating your exposure opportunity. And I think it's interesting. I was talking to my folks who live in Fort Morgan too. And they said that Morgan County has 0 cases, and that's great. That's fantastic news. That doesn't
if it's true.
First off. Well, 0 recorded, right? But it's nice that in a rural community type situation where you do not have like the Las Vegas airport type of traffic. But
you got to keep it that way, though, and that's the thing.
That's what I was
about
to say.
So we got 0 cases. Everyone stay
down.
home, and we're going to keep it that way. It's like thinking that your eyes are fixed when you're wearing glasses. That is not the case. You still can't see without them. So don't presume that because we have no positive cases that we're fine. We can go about business as usual, because that's how we don't have any cases, is because we are staying home.
Well, you
that's
guys,
you
have everything. You've got gas stations. People are going to touch pumps to pump gas. You still have people. Drive-throughs are still open, so they're still like it's not an isolated situation. It's a low risk situation, but it's not completely clean and isolated. So you do have to be careful. And
still be very careful.
This very lighthearted podcast took a very serious
right. Well, so with that,
it's hard not to talk about it.
So we were going to talk about the entire sort of Oscar set, the Oscar list, but we
1917
finally did see one movie. There's one movie that we've all seen, and that's 1917. And so I'll make a show note about it that if you want to skip us introducing ourselves, if you want to skip us talking about COVID-19, skip to right now, and you can listen to us talk about the movie 1917.
Or in 5 minutes, because I don't have that much recording time left.
Oh, where do you have? Was it going to your hard drive?
No, I meant like physical time. I have
physical time.
An obligation later.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
The new season of Ozark has begun.
Right.
And I made a promise to watch that. So.
Okay. Oh, I suppose it's 9:00 your time, right? So, in 5ish. Well, that's okay. This will be the most boring podcast for anyone to listen to ever. We'll just do it some other time.
Well, it can be. We could.
I
circle
even
back.
made notes, which is kind of crazy.
I have notes too.
Yeah.
Actually, I was good.
I took notes.
I've got
Well,
thoughts.
this is
You
still,
wanna stretch
this is
it?
still
You
a
wanna stretch
solid
it?
Oh no, it's
episode.
okay.
We
Yeah,
can-
no,
I got a window.
Yeah.
It's still a good episode because it's got the intro, it's got us talking about it, but it is also the crux of us getting together to do this podcast was for three people who are co-located in completely separate locations that have a couple of things in common, and then just have conversations about life and times as they come up.
No, that's
and
true.
that's where we are right now. This is what's happening, and I think some people enjoy having thoughts and stuff being reiterated by people that they trust or listen to in a comforting or intelligible way.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it's not a total toss off, but
We are here to verbally comfort you.
yeah, I know. I mean, that's why things like podcasts are successful and
Yeah.
YouTube is successful, is that there is a comfort in social
Yeah, there's a connection.
validation or connection too, where I'm saying like, hey, I think like that too. Like there's nothing wrong with it.
No, absolutely. I agree.
I also like to check out pictures of donkey hooves. I mean, just for example, I'm not saying I do that, but do you guys?
If
Goat hooves.
if
out
there was a
donkey
site
horse
all
legs.
about donkey, what is a donkey hoof? You mean like the actual hoof? Is it
I
similar
don't
to
know.
a satyr?
Yeah, is it cloven? No, a donkey would be like a horse. That'd be
Yeah.
like your horse.
So a
horse
minotaur.
legs. We're going back to the
Or a
previous.
centaur.
Good
Yeah.
loop back. Yeah.
If anyone got that far in that episode, God bless them, because that was
Was that like
point.
4
It
hours
was a rough
in?
point in my life, not knowing what these things were and being completely perplexed by it. Just feeling like I was in the Twilight Zone. I'm like, I've been thinking minotaurs were centaurs this whole time.
Wait a minute. What's a horse?
What's that?
Which one is the horse? What the hell's a horse? Pulled up a picture of a horse. No, that's a camel. What?
Exactly.
This blew my freaking mind.
I've had a couple of moments like that.
I
in my
thought a
life
camel
where I'm
with
like,
2 humps was a horse.
Yeah.
A humpless camel. That's what I called horses.
A no hump camel? No, that's a no hump camel. No, that's a horse. What? What? Well, what's that? That's a cow. Oh, it's not a fat zebra?
Fancy.
No, I called it a fat, voluptuous zebra. What's voluptuous? Those udders.
I was 14th in my class. Look, it's a fat zebra, okay? Let's just leave it there.
It's a Holstein. It's fat zebra.
Yeah. And the sky looks
Big
real
nipples.
orange today, huh? So, the sky was gray today. I know my colors. Everything's gray.
Oh. Yeah, it's like, were you on Mars today?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have color blindness?
Certain degree. I mean, I see all the colors.
okay.
I see the colors. Everything's there. It's just certain. Well, it's real inconvenient color blindness because if it's laid over on top of itself, I don't see certain reds and green, like red and green. So it makes driving hard sometimes because
Oh, yeah.
stoplights.
Those are some important driving colors.
Yeah, so if I'm in a city situation, say, and I'm driving down a straightaway and there's a lot of stoplights along the way,
Oh yeah,
I have a hard time knowing which one is mine and which ones
Oh.
stop and go. I see the red, I see the green, but they
Gotcha.
cancel each other out when they're laid on top of each other, and it just turns
Gotcha.
into nothing. So the
Gotcha.
colors are there, or maybe the red becomes the dominant color, or the green becomes the dominant color when they're not necessarily supposed to be, because the stoplight that I should be looking at is ahead of me. It sounds way more dangerous than it really is. Don't worry.
I was gonna say.
Look, officer.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good canned response.
Colorblind. Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Why'd you run that red light? Okay, here's the thing, officer.
I didn't know it until we did those colorblind tests when we were in school, where there's it's red and green, and there's like a number 6
number,
in there.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, they're like, "What number is that?" And I'm like, "It's a number."
Oh, you didn't see the number
Didn't
in
see
there.
the number. And I remember the eye doctor who came in to, I don't remember what grade it was, but I mean, he was just real like, "Oh, you're colorblind." And I was like, "Wait, no, I see all the colors." He goes, "No, you are." And I was like, "All right, well."
He's like, let me go ahead and correct you right there.
Yeah, except for the fact that I knew colors. I just was like, well, I can't see a stupid number 6 inside of a swirly red and green
Yeah.
piece of paper. Like, I don't know.
I think there are some of those tests where they used to actually have one set of those dots did not have a number in it.
Oh, really?
It was like the control to see if
yeah.
people were like
Yeah.
BSing.
Yeah.
Or they would like, because you can look at those and you can pick out you can pick out there are like patterns of the dots that if you start to learn the pattern, you can be like, oh, that's a 4, that's a 5. That's why the numbers are always like kind of wonky looking. Well, no, it's
to learn
so that's how my brain works. It's pattern recognition.
Right.
But yeah, so I think some of the tests used to have a just a solid red with just the dots, no number whatsoever. Just so, like, I've worn glasses since like first grade, so my entire life, essentially. Those letters, read the letters on the chart thing. Those are a standard set. Well, there's like 2 standards now.
So you've memorized them?
I have them memorized. I go
amazing.
in there, and the guy knows it. My eye doctor is great, and he has to ask because it's a valid test. But now the test is like, are any of them more or less blurry than they used to be? But yeah, I've got them memorized, and I could just rattle them off.
That's funny.
I'd have to, somebody have to start me. It's like the EKNYJPOTNPST, something like that. But yeah, I could just rip it off.
It's like a guy that gets DUIs all the time who can bang out the alphabet backwards, probably. You know, where it's like a normal sober person goes, wait, hold on, what?
I learned it backwards in a rare moment. I mean, I'm not really a competitive person per se, but in this rare moment of competitiveness, my middle brother was learning how to do the alphabet backwards, so I decided I was going to learn it as fast as I possibly could.
Just to get under his skin.
Yeah, it was like really weird thing to want to compete on. Like I didn't care about winning in other things, like, you know, clearly sports.
No, you just gotta stick it to your brother.
I was like, ZYXWB, UTSRQBO, NMLKGI, HGFE, DCBA. And I was like, got it. Whew, okay. That was the most important thing in my life, was to learn the alphabet backwards.
So never do that if you get pulled over. Don't say it that fast and confident, because they'll go, oh, you're an alcoholic.
Right. There's the lesson there, kids.
Yeah. But it's
that was
kind of like
too
the alphabet.
easy.
Like I guess I kind of see it, but it's more like just a collection of
It's
sounds.
a muscle memory, right?
Is all
it's
it
just
is at this
right.
point. It's just a mush of noises that sound like the alphabet going backwards. I don't even remember how I
when you did
memorized
it
it, but I
that
remember
fast.
I memorized it real fast. Like it took me like a day, and I had it, which is weird. I don't know.
What did you sacrifice that day that you were supposed to be doing?
I don't know. Probably I don't know. It was early. It was like 6th, 7th grade probably. So
Okay.
it was back when we could still remember things. I don't remember things anymore.
Sure.
Yeah, my memory's real bad at this point.
Oh, no, it's true. Yeah,
That's
that
why I
long-term
take
memory.
notes,
You're like,
because I took notes on the movie last night, and because I knew I wasn't going to remember what I wanted to talk about, and then because Roger Deakins is one of my most favorite cinematographers of all time. He's the
Deke me,
cinematographer
bro.
of 1917 and amongst all of Coen Brothers movies and such. And then so I wrote it down, Deakins, and I was like kind of excited. So a bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about, and then I looked up his filmography because I was like, I wonder what his like early stuff was. And then I saw it this morning when I woke up and got up and I popped my phone open, and on Safari I still had the Roger Deakins IMDb page, and I literally said to myself, wonder why I was looking him up. Like, how did I didn't even remember the fact that I spent an hour, oogling over his filmography. I don't know.
That happens.
Something's wrong with my brain.
It's just reprioritizing.
Yeah. I'm really moment to moment. I'm very much like dogs. Just like moment to moment. Like
it's like string cheese up there.
It is. Yes, I've realigned my proteins. That's what we do.
I'll realign your proteins.
Yeah, you will. So did we not get to a movie in this episode of Smoking Hot Nerds? Is that
So
where
we
we're
have
going with
set ourselves up for 1917 real nicely. We can
Yeah.
just march right into it next time.
it? Right, exactly.
Yeah, this is a nice little
We're like an hour and a half
next
of
time-
not
pandemic
Yeah.
introduction episode.
So next time on the Smoking Hot Nerds, we'll be talking about Sam Mendes's 1917,
Yes.
starring 2 guys I don't remember their names.
That's
couple
okay.
of schmoes.
Yeah, but apparently one of them was in Game of Thrones. Well, I don't
Yes.
remember what character he was.
The little
because
guy.
Who
The
could
shorter
remember
guy.
that?
Oh, right. Yeah.
He was one of the Lannisters. He was like the cousin who joins
he's
the
the one at
weird
the
cult.
end. Isn't he the one at the end who jumps out of the tower? Isn't like when?
Oh wait,
Yeah,
is he the? Oh, that's who he is. He's the
yeah.
son. He's the younger brother of. He's Tommen.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's the one who takes over after Joffrey dies, and
Yeah,
they kick out.
He's the
mom.
good prince.
Yes, he just
who
looked like a
becomes the
child in that though.
Yeah,
Holy
Because I mean,
mackerel!
they
I
shot
was thinking of a
that-
different guy. Yeah,
that season in 2009.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
he looks a little like Josh Hutcherson, who played
Sure.
the guy in Hunger Games, PETA, which is funny because that character's name is PETA, and his parents were bakers.
Oh,
Is it really that? Or
Yep.
Is that real?
Yep, that's a thing. And now that I've said it, you'll never forget it.
was his dad's nickname Chip?
Yep, and hummus, old good old chip and hummus.
Awful. And his mom's name was Lefsa.
Sounds like my stupid idea for two like British hooligans who become lawyers, and it's called Bangers and Mash. That's their names. And they
Sounds
become
like
lawyers.
a USA show, though. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, exactly.
Or TBS, maybe.
They become lawyers because that's how they can like extort people the best. They like they hunker down, go through law school, pass the bar,
Just so they can
extort people and
Yeah.
like blackmail their own clients and things.
Amazing. Do you already have
And
the
they
logo
just-
for the show? Bangers.
No, I don't. Bangers and Mash.
It's just
Oi now, and they
one
just
sausage
totally
with
have
two
just like
potatoes.
the worst
one on.
accents, and they just cuss, and they're just terrible. And I think it would be hilarious.
That's amazing. That'd be great. I
So
can
yeah,
see
look
that.
look out for Bangers and Mash on USA Network in the year 3005.
Yeah. In like every other USA show, suddenly you realize that this show that you've never heard of has 10 seasons. You're like, this show's been going on for that long. Who watches it? That one lawyer
What's
show is like
Flankles?
that. Yeah.
Which one?
What is that lawyer show that's on USA? I don't remember what it's called.
Something and Rossetti. Or no, there's like a cop show too. There's a lady cops, and then there was dudes. Saved by the
Suits.
Bell guy.
Suits.
Oh, they're Suits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they're like
Yeah,
the
that's
final
where
season
Markle
of Suits.
came
When did
from,
Suits
didn't
start?
she?
2004. I'm like, wait, what?
yeah, right.
Or there was a show a while back my parents used to watch. It was a sci-fi type show.
The Expanse.
No, it's like
Stargate.
They have is it called The Warehouse or Warehouse 19 or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And same thing where it was like,
like
season 4 or season 5.
Interdimensional time travel stuff,
Yeah,
right?
I've
Just
never
like fun,
heard of this
hokey
before.
show.
Yeah, it was actually
Yeah.
pretty. What I'd seen of it was pretty fun, but yeah, I mean, there's just so much content. There's so much to watch. It's absurd.
Right.
I just spent my whole life watching The Staircase instead of something that was actually useful to my filmmaking. Well, actually, it was relatively useful to a filmmaking
The
perspective.
documentary.
Yeah, it's on Netflix because it was a documentary in early 2000s. 2001 is when they started filming it, and they filmed all the way through the trial, which ended, I think, 2004-ish or something like that. And then they came back to start shooting more in 2011, and then started shooting, and then shot the last parts in like 2017. So you've got this like weird like lifetime of filmmaking
like that
gear,
Boyhood,
basically. So you
Right.
see these people transform and stuff, but when they shot it in early 2000s, they were using like video cameras, so the footage is a little rough to watch. And then flash forward to now, they're using like actual like digital cameras and like real cinema cameras and stuff. So it was like that part of it was really interesting. But it's worth a watch if you want to go on a ride with a family for a decade and a half. It's definitely worth it. But it's a very interesting, so crazy to see how different things are now, how wide open. I don't know, just life is just way more transparent now than it was even in 2001.
Yeah,
and how differently people are looked at, how differently Jeffy's in the corner, how differently just everything is approached now that we've science and just things are so different. And that was only 20 years ago. It's just crazy.
Right.
I go on and on, but it was pretty good. I liked it.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
But I was so invested that I actually had to I was near the last episode and I was so invested and I was so nervous about watching the next episode to know what happened to him that I just looked it up on Wikipedia just to find out how it ends so I could watch the last episode in peace and not
Without
have to
all the
worry about
stress.
yeah.
So you can go back to learning the alphabet backwards.
ZYX to be easy. Exactly. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up, I think, for the night. There's some Ozark to watch, Nico.
Yes, sir.
Eric, are you watching anything tonight?
I'm probably going to keep working, and I'll probably just have YouTube on, maybe just have like the Conan podcast or something in the background. So,
Yeah.
I won't be like dedicated watching something. I'll try and stay productive. But
yeah, me too. I'm going to edit a little bit, but then later I started Don't F with Cats last night after I watched 1917. Beautifully made documentary so far.
I've heard, it kind of like flew into the social media radar, and a lot of people were very angry. I have done zero research on it, so I don't know what it's about. But
I don't even.
All I do know is that it was nowhere, and then it was all through my Twitter feed, but like angrily in my Twitter feed.
Yeah. So Netflix documentary series. I watched the first episode last night.
Tiger King?
No, a different one.
No,
it's
that's
called
the new one.
Don't F with Cats. It's but what's interesting, Nico, you might find it interesting because the main character that they're interviewing, one of the main characters, she works for a casino in Vegas and has to do with the slot machines and things like that, the computer aspect of it. And so the basic premise is there's a guy who posts a video of him killing two cats, and in one of those vacuum bags, that sucks all the air out.
Yeah.
So the internet started going nuts trying to look for him. But obviously, as most of these stories go, it turns into something completely different and is just so weird and so intertwined. But see, this is the kind of documentary I love to watch. For one, because I love getting invested in these real human stories. But for two, it is just beautifully made, like beautifully constructed. The look of the interviews is amazing. The way that they cut the B-roll together is great, but the sound design is just killer, and the way that they lay the sounds and fade in and out of the YouTube videos that the people watch, and the clicking and it's great so far.
Awesome.
But you got to pace yourself on. I have to pace myself, obviously, because there's.
Jeffy
it's basically just a documentary of Jeffy moments. That's all it is. Yeah. So I got to be careful. I get too sad, so I'll sit with Mr. Hambones and I'll pet him while I watch it.
Hamsters.
Hamsters?
Hamsters. That's my nickname for him.
Mr. Hamsters. Nico, enjoy your night. Eric, enjoy
I'm
your
gonna
night.
stop recording.
Thank you to
Yes,
everyone
I will.
who listened, and we will see you guys. Well, we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
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 All right, and I'll hit stop recording now.